Good afternoon, everyone. This is Shahé Mankerian, January 5th. It's Armenian Christmas Eve. So, to all my Armenian friends, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the first Poets in Pajamas of 2020. This is number 67. 67 is a special number because that's the year I was born. So a lot of the poems that I will read this afternoon has to do with numbers. Either the title has a number or in the poem, numbers play an important role. So before I get to the numbers, I would like to read a poem called My Name. Unfortunately, in America, names have to be palatable, ordinary, and recognizable. Immigrants often feel guilty for having foreign names. Over the years, I've noticed my friends change their beautiful Armenian names to something as recognizable as Steve or Mary. I never felt the urge or the guilt to do that. I wanted my teachers, the baristas, police officers to sweat before they read or they tried to pronounce my name. I enjoyed seeing the beads of sweat before they pronounced Shahe. So let me start with a poem called My Name. To the American ear, Shahe is a mistake. It's a crazy consonant malfunction, alphabetic disorder. The boys at Starbucks want to relabel me. Shane, your coffee's ready. Sean, non-fat latte, extra foam. It's no use correcting them because in their world, I am wrong and they're right. In their world, Armenian is a typo. It should be American. Computers often recognize me as a verb. Shake, shave, share. Depends who wants to play Scrabble with me that day. My name is Shahe. Shale sounds nice, but it's not my name. In Turkish, Shash means cross-eyed peasant. It's not my name. Shat is the past tense of shit. It's not my name. Shah almost sounds like a playwright. Shaq sounds like a basketball player. Shame, shame, shame. Not my name. My name is Shahe. It has a powerful connotation of the Shah and a simple he, like a whisper, like a sigh on a cold winter day, like an end of a poem. So I'm going to start reading my number poems. I was born in Beirut, Lebanon, in 1967. And growing up, I grew up in a household of Armenians with interesting dynamic. My dad was from Palestine. He moved to Lebanon during the Arab-Israeli War in 1948. My mom came from Aleppo, Syria, and they met in Beirut and they got married in Beirut. However, growing up, unfortunately, I never remember Beirut as a peaceful place. It was definitely, I was surrounded by the Civil War and bombs and machine guns and fire, explosions was pretty much my daily dosage of being a child. So the first poem I will read is called The Ninth. It's very interesting because my dad was a musician himself. He played the violin. And growing up in in our Beirut home, we heard a lot of classical music. This poem is called The Ninth, after Beethoven's Ninth. The remaining window in the living room rattled the first time Father played Beethoven's Ninth. In Beirut, bombs shattered glass panels, and Father's taped plastic sheets on every splintered pane. I didn't hear the guttural bang of the timpani. Clashing cymbals didn't symbolize the fiery arrows of Ares. Low-flying jets coined that claim. I didn't care for the bombastic choir. They drowned the rat-tat-tat of M16s. I sifted through the noise like a deaf beggar sifting through trash and discovering flashy pomegranate. That's how I discovered the French horns, so lonely and lost, buried deep in Beethoven's Ninth. Another poem that I want to read, growing up in Beirut during the war, this is one of the things that we did a lot, was go out and sort of imitate our heroes who had machine guns and walked the streets, but we had slingshots instead. So the poem that I wrote is called Learning to Kill at 7. My friend Gatto said, aim above the head. The pebble will strike the pupil of the dove. My trembling slingshot missed the socket and struck the neck. Blood gushed out. I wish I didn't drink fish oil that morning because I vomited courage in the alley like a week-old soup. This is another poem that was written during and it's about the war in Beirut. It's called First Love. Her smile made him forget all the hungry children in the ghettos of Beirut, all the mothers scavenging for rotten vegetables at the chicken market, all the fathers who carried defective guns to protect water pipes, bridges, milk trucks, and wounded hospitals. Her smile added a bounce to his walk, a hop and a skip over dead pigeons, skeletal cats, and rats that chews on shoestrings. He dodged bullets in alleys and blew kisses at snipers who used sandbags to veil their eyes. He stole lilies from the sidewalk shrines with melted candle wax and drooping petals. She simply smiled. We came to America in 1979. We migrated. My parents had enough of the war, so we packed our bags, the whole family, my mom, my dad, 2 brothers, and we came to Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles is where I started to learn English, realized that there were a lot of tricks to this new language. So this poem is about my dad trying to teach us the language in his own way. It's called New Immigrants, 1979. That summer, Father purchased a color TV because he wanted his sons to articulate like Cronkite. He speaks 124 words per minute, he said, so immigrants like us could understand. That summer, the Muslim Brotherhood killed 62 sheikhs in Aleppo. A car bomb destroyed a Renault owned by Nazi hunters. Newly elected Iraqi president executed 22 political opponents. In Iran, censors started massive book burnings. Ayatollah demanded saint war against the Kurds. IRA bomb exploded in Brussels' Great Market. And Cronkite's final report before school started, US President Jimmy Carter attacked by a rabbit on a canoe trip in Plains, Georgia. So coming to America, I also realized that how important going to the library was. And I'm so grateful that there were libraries and there were books and we could get them for free. And that was something completely new for an immigrant. So this is a poem that I wrote to my 12-year-old self. It's a letter. It's called Dear 12-Year-Old Self. Ride your bicycle a lot. Don't pick up magazines in the alley. Don't call any of the girls. Samantha does not exist. Her phone number belongs to Tyrone. If you want to talk to girls, go to the library. The girl sitting pretzel style in the Nancy Drew aisles might be shy, but talk to her. She will know more about boys than Samantha or Tyrone. Carry the books she checked out to her bike. Memorize the titles because your job is to know Nancy Drew. After you watch her ride off into the sunset, run to the checkout desk and apply for a library card. I also started high school in Pasadena, and that was also an interesting experience, going to a school where you had people from all over the world, all over the country, and this was new to me. I never had that experience before in Beirut. So I wrote this poem, Biology 1A, to my teacher because she was the one who encouraged me to write. And this is dedicated to her. Biology 1A. Dear Miss Sockerman, you made me sit in the back room next to the skeleton because I distracted freckled Margie, the albino football player with specs, and you. Your cluttered periodic table or the video on the mitosis of onion root drove me near suicide. I screamed in anger. I don't want to be a scientist when I grow up. You nodded and erased the blackboard full of evolution. Dust fell. I want to become a writer, I said. You nodded and led me to the back, to the toothless skeleton, smiled, sharpened my shriveled pencil, and asked me to write. Soon after we came to the US, I lost my dad he had a stroke. And the poem that I'm going to read next, it's from a collection of poetry, Pasadena Rose Poets, Poetry Collection 2019, a great anthology of 10 poets who either live or work in Pasadena. If you'd like to know more information about this book, message me. I will let you know, but this is the poem that I dedicated to my dad who passed away in Los Angeles, far away from Lebanon. The name of the poem is Shakshuka. Father chopped 3 soft tomatoes and balanced a dangling cigarette in his mouth. He gave his back to the bedroom and mother's glaring eyes before he splattered a lump of butter into the hot pan. He peeled 2 cloves of garlic and crushed them on the cutting board with the heel of his palm. We haven't paid the mortgage, she taunted. He wished the radio played Beethoven and drowned mother's voice like the dishes in the sink full of dirty water. When he felt the tightness in his chest, he paused, leaned against the counter to suppress the pain. He removed his glasses because the yolks looked blurry in the pan like jaundiced eyeballs. Mother didn't get to him on time. The sizzling butter turned the edges of the egg white, black. A moth trapped in the cumin container fluttered. Father hit the linoleum tile with the salt dish, scallions, and the spatula. Interestingly enough, and this probably will be my last poem before I take some questions from the listeners. There's a poem called 14. I lost my mom a month ago, exactly a month ago, and over a month ago, actually. And this is a poem, was written to her right before she passed. She was suffering from dementia, and this is a poem dedicated to that time of her life. 14. She forgets because she walks the hallways like Diogenes, because she sips lentil soup left behind on a dirty platter, because she lifts the broken payphone by the nurse's station and calls her husband, because she talks to the aquarium mounted opposite the employee of the month, because God hides in the belly of the sucker-mouthed fish, because she buries her husband every night underneath the whipping willow, because she misplaces her purse and accuses the night shift for being thieves, because she cannot locate her room. She bears a number 14 on her left hand, written with a felt pen. I wanted to know if there are any questions about writing, about the process of writing. I truly enjoyed reading these poems about numbers. I would like to give you some time to think about questions. However, I believe that students, I teach at a school, and I'm also the principal of the school, and we write daily. And I believe that writing is a form of freedom for students. And one of the things that I do a lot with my students also is the idea of drawing. I tried an exercise with my daughter when she was 7. It's called Areni Sketchbook at 7. This is a poem about looking at her sketchbook and writing about what I saw. Here, a heart drowns in a teacup. A purple stem supports a pink daisy with a silver petals like blades. Eraser marks destroy our house. A caterpillar escapes a pair of scissors. A black fountain pen inhales. The letter S back into its stomach. An apron drips acorns. Frankenstein is a green schoolgirl. A dog coughs clouds. An incompetent swordfish competes with the rainbow. Two swans kiss, or is it a handlebar mustache? She writes, hard wind, two spies. He saved me. A cart travels through a highway. The hairless driver stares out, frowns. A chef's head sprouts. A nun sprouts a clown. I have a question that says, how do numbers play a larger part in your overall life and poetry? It's interesting that numbers have played a huge role in my writing, and I didn't realize this until I started thinking about it over the weekend, that I have a lot of poems with numbers, and it almost makes it, I guess, almost dates poems where it just brings the reader to a special time or a period. For example, when I read the poem about 1979, it gives you a place. It brings me back to the time we came to America. So numbers play that kind of role. For example, when I write about my daughter, I number them with her age so that I can remember. I guess it helps to remember. That's what numbers do. 14 was an interesting poem. This was a poem that was about my mom. When I went to visit her at the elderly home, I saw that somebody had written number 14 on her palm, and I didn't understand what the number was for. Why was it there? Eventually, I realized the reason they wrote the number 14 on her palm is so that she'll remember her room. Since she had the dementia, she would often walk around looking for her room. So that to me was very interesting, sort of cruel on some level, but it's something that I took with me to my own room, and I started thinking about that number 14, and that poem came out. So numbers do ground me. They allow you to write a poem to a place, to a certain. They give you certain history. So that's where numbers come in. Hope I answered that question. For example, I would like to read a poem called Happy Birthday on the 63rd anniversary of Gorky. Well, let me tell you about Arshil Gorky a little bit. Arshil Gorky is an Armenian painter who came to the US right after the Armenian genocide of 1915. And he lived in New York, Massachusetts, a number of other places. However, he committed suicide because he was suffering with depression. So the name of the artist is Arshil Gorky, and I wrote this poem on his 63rd anniversary of suicide. It's called Happy Birthday on the 63rd anniversary of Gorky's suicide. Today you will have breakfast, 2 hard-boiled eggs and squeezed blood oranges. Today you will save the peeled shells to feed the mad waterfalls in your head. Today your fingers will feel pain without paint. You cover the canvas with the mother's face. Today you will remove the clothespins from the clothesline. You will need the rope and the sunshine of your studio. You will need a sturdy chair and a ceiling fan. Today will mark another birthday as you swing lightly in midair, suspended like the butcher's meat, back in the city of fun. I have another question that says, how do you know which images to gather and bring to the emotional center of your poems? I don't think images come once you start writing the poem. And the first draft, sometimes I have no images. It just literally looks like a first draft. And then as you read these lines, I start to pair them with images that will broaden the poem. I would use metaphors, similes, sometimes just visuals. I had a teacher, Ron Kirchie, who would say, "Your poems have to be. You should be able to film your poems." So if there was a camera, each line should be able. The reader has to be able to film it. So I continually use that advice in my writing that every line should be able to be filmed with a camera. So that's why visuals are quite important for me, and they definitely ground the poem. So hopefully that answers Arthur's question about how do I use images. Speaking of images, I would like to read a poem called In Twos. Again, this is about my mother's dementia. My mother toys with the dementia. Our conversations volley between poetry and my failure to produce another child. She recites verses from ancient Armenia because she remembers them from school. I feed her memory pills as she mutters, "Two cranes falter from our world." She chews on air as if to adjust her dentures. Your daughter looks lonely, like a lost sandal. She reminds me and holds my hand in her kitchen because I'm her second born, because we don't have much to say, because silence provides another poem. My son, find the missing pair, the other goddess, the carnival of joy. There's a question, then probably this is our last question. How has your love for writing poetry helped you to push yourself, sometimes into unaccustomed spaces and places? Gerda is asking this question. It's very interesting how sometimes poetry, it's a very lonely occupation and profession. You can just be in your room and write, and like Emily Dickinson, hide them somewhere and no one will be able to read them. However, it's been interesting to go out and read my poems at places that sometimes have 5 people, sometimes have 500 people, in streets where people are walking by and no one's paying attention and you're reading your poem, or at city hall meetings where right before the city hall meeting starts, I've gone up there and read my poems. Interesting journey for a poet and what we can do with our poetry. So I think this is the end of our session. I would like to thank the people at Poets in Pajamas. Jacqueline, thank you. Anna, thank you for everything. This was a lot of fun reading to the unknown. So hopefully it helped, it resonated. Thank you so much. Hopefully to hear from you. If anybody wants these poems, message me and I'll send them to you. Thank you.